welcome to the very first episode of the FinancialMD podcast. As a physician, everything you ever wanted to know about finances and a few things that you didn't. Today, I am one of your hosts, John Salitro, and our co-host, Dr. Trevor Smith, is on as well. Say hello, Trevor.
Hey. How's everybody doing?
Oh, yeah. Big round of applause. Thank you. All right. So we thought we'd start out just for most of you that are listening, unless this is my mom. Hi, Mom. Most of you are probably not completely aware of what FinancialMD is. I assume you have a little bit of an idea, but we thought it might help to give some introduction on what it is and who we are and why the heck we're doing this podcast and how a advisor and a physician ever became friends and friends enough to do a podcast together.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump in. I'm John Salitro. Where am I now? I live in Lansing, Michigan area, and I am the financial planner of the duo and married. I've got 4 kids, a girl that's 14, boys that are 8, 7, and 5. So life is crazy. It's like both genders are at their craziest ages. I got a teenage daughter, and then I got young boys that are just insane. But life is good. We're recording this in September, so we're still in pseudo pandemic. Who knows, depending on what numbers you look at. Either way, I'm still working a lot from home. Trevor is not. He has to go into the office, but that's
right.
The nature of that. Unless you're a radiologist, you're probably going back into the office.
That's right.
Radiologists always had that gig. We've had a few clients over the years, and they get paid buku bucks to sit in their basement and look at pictures.
It's some serious business, though. I'm not jealous of the dark rooms personally. I mean, I do some dark rooms for ophthalmology.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of dark rooms. Those guys are they like to hibernate.
I know. I had one that moved to Hawaii and then spent most of his days in a basement. Yeah.
That's where they put those guys.
He had nice weekends. Yeah. Right.
Absolutely.
I remember when I was an undergrad at MSU, one of my good friends was pre-med and she wanted to be a radiologist. And I said, why? And she's like, well, I'm not that much of a people person. I was like, okay, I guess that's
fine.
That's the specialty you choose when you have no bedside manner.
It's a good one, but you don't have to deal with all the the interpersonal complexities of patient care are certainly reduced in that subspecialty, which can be an advantage. I think.
Well, we need those.
Ways.
I mean, you know, at the end of the day, you guys are scientists and researchers, and that's.
I think a scientist would be like a very generous description of me at this point.
Right. I can certainly understand that.
In my background here, I'm Trevor Smith. I'm an ophthalmologist in the Flint area in Michigan, comprehensive ophthalmology. But I follow this guy, Glaucom Flecken. He's like a famous Twitter ophthalmology personality. Really funny guy. He's got a site and stuff too. But he had this joke the other day that was like, my patients always ask me if I would go back to medical school again, if I'd go back and do it again. And he says, yeah, of course, I know half the material. Which I think is great. It's very true for ophthalmology. And I think probably a lot of people, you end up forgetting, just a ton of what you used to know in medical school. So it would be, you'd have to learn a lot again. But, anyways, yeah. So, and I'm, my other intro would be that I have under 100 followers on Twitter. So I'm not a famous ophthalmologist like Glaucom Flecken, but you can follow me at Trevor Smith MD. So that's my one plug, and I tweet 50% about interesting libertarian things, including Bitcoin, and then 50% about just random either ophthalmology stuff or hot takes on pandemic issues, and pretty apolitical. And I just like to think about the ideas more than the opinions, and that The political aspect definitely does get interesting though, just because it
Yeah.
mixes and mashes and twists and turns all the actual what you want to call facts. And so that's one of my side hobbies, and is just being on Twitter a little bit too much, mostly reading other people's and just learning about finance stuff, which is how I ended up meeting John here.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so we met what, 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
I bet it was that. Yeah.
So 20,
No more than
it might
4.
be in 17 actually. It might have been
Yeah.
between 3 and 4, 16 or
Yep.
17.
Yep.
And I well, yeah, basically like I was like trying to figure out whether I could have a nice little side gig of
Mhm.
disability insurance during residency, because every dollar counts. And I was wanting
Right.
to fill out my Roth IRA,
Yeah.
and I was not going to be able to do it as a resident.
Mhm.
Initially I was paying on my loans before I refinanced. And then I refinanced and I was just doing like $100 a month or something. And then I was able to get, more into a Roth, but I was just looking for different options. And I like side gig stuff. That's why one of the reasons we're
Mhm.
sitting
Yep.
here.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyways, I was looking into that, and my cousin works for an insurance company, and then he had some sort of connection, I think, with your dad, right? And
And
I
my
was like,
dad
hey,
is
what if
was
I
his business partner. Yep.
that's what it was? Okay, yeah. And he was like, "Oh, you should talk to this guy, John. He works with doctors specifically. He's a young guy. Maybe he'll help you kind of like
Good
get
looking.
some
Yeah.
information." I don't even know, like, what does an agent do? Do they take tests, whatever? So you walk me through that. And then I ended up getting certified in
Yep.
health, life, and disability. It's like there's just different combos of that. Two of those overlap with one of the other ones. I don't remember which one's which. You can take separate, or you can take them all in one. It's not too bad.
Mhm.
Um, I learned a lot about whole life and term life, and sort of the agent slash, now they actually call it a producer, but what we think of as an agent. I learned that perspective on the industry, which is kind of cool. Like the
Yeah.
official, like this is what you have to know to be an agent, the curriculum. And that was after having read a lot of like white coat investor stuff. So it was cool to see it from kind of both angles.
Yeah.
Like these are the products, these are the laws, these are why the laws exist and stuff. Um, and my personal interest started with disability because I had a sore neck one time in medical school, studying long hours. And then I went to the doctor because I'm, like not technically a hypochondriac, but I was the medical student version, like everybody. I think it's called medical student syndrome. Anyways, I
Okay.
went in, I saw somebody, and because I was on my medical record, it was really tough to get uh, like a non-exclusive policy that would cover everything,
Yep.
including like my neck and my spine.
Right.
Fortunately, went a long time without actually having issues. My initial application had a spine exclusion. I got that taken off later, because you can actually reapply after a couple of years if you're not having any issues. So that was kind of nice.
Oh, thank the Lord.
Anyways, yeah, thank the Lord, because ophthalmologists can really have some problems with their necks and backs and stuff. So
Yeah, I think
unfortunately,
that's the biggest claim for surgeons is probably
I'm
their
sure it
back and
is,
stuff.
and I'm thankful that, like, most days I'm almost have like, no, even soreness a lot of
Mhm.
times, or if I do, it's not like a chronic or constant thing. So um it's just the regular kind of like make sure you position yourself well kind of thing. But yeah, so anyways, that was where my interest came from, because I was like, wow, this is complicated. And I learned after I had that initial issue, years later, I'm in residency, I was like, oh, I got to get this disability. And I realized it's not just, easy to do. And then especially if you have any sort of medical thing, that was like a nothing thing that caused me problems.
Yeah.
So I wanted to help other doctors understand how important and valuable it is, and also earn a little side gig income. So we've had, you and I have done like just a handful of policies. Really, I talk with docs about the value, and
Mhm.
we've talked some strategy. I have like kind of my own approach where I like doing a couple policies and
Yep.
splitting them so you can. And that was I mean, you taught me that. I really like that idea. In case one goes under, or they're, they go from AAA, or whatever, not as reliable of
Oh,
an
yeah,
insurance
yeah.
company.
Yeah, Kevin really
I
liked that idea too. I remember talking to him about that.
yeah. It's a cool thing. So, um, anyways, and yeah, and then you kind of honestly do the heavy lifting and the paperwork, and um, they don't make it easy for you. There's no quick solution. And so until, now that you're working on Financial MD, that's kind of the idea. It's like
Right.
be a one-stop shop and solution to just do all the things that doctors need and take the work out of it, so that they don't wait years to bank the money, so they don't wait years or until they have a medical problem to try to cover themselves medically.
Totally.
And you know you're doing it well, and you know the system, and you know what doctors go through, and you're a relatable person. So I mean, that's what has kept us connected, I think, is you know what's up. You really know how to solve doctors problems. And you also could have saved me, so much money if you if I would have listened to you about multiple things in investing. So I'm certainly not giving investment advice on the podcast. John can actually technically give it. I'm sure there's some disclosures in there, but you're
Yeah,
certified.
we'll still have a
You're the
disclosure.
real guy.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
well, I appreciate that. There's a lot of quotes that I'll use in my book, so thank you. Um,
perfect.
yeah, and that was where our lives intersected. Prior to being a financial planner, I was actually a therapist, and I'm a licensed
Oh
counselor.
yeah,
I
that's right.
got my master's in counseling and tried that world of mental health care for a while, and got burned out pretty quick. I think a lot of it felt like, a lot of time and a lot of work without a lot of reward. It seemed like I didn't get to always see the patients get better.
Hmm.
A lot of them just didn't. I think a lot of them didn't want to. I worked with a
Hmm.
lot of
Hmm.
couples over the years, and uh,
Interesting.
yeah, and what I found made the biggest, quickest impact was helping couples with their finances.
Yep.
And it didn't fix everything, but it certainly gave them something tangible that they could walk away with and say, okay, we're communicating better on this, or we understand why we act this way when it comes to money. And I that
Hmm.
was I did that for about 2 or 3 years in private practice, and then transitioned into financial planning when Ruben Levinson, who was one of our partners, he approached me. I was friends with his daughter back in high school, and he was always the cool older brother. But so hadn't talked to him for years and years and years, and then ran into me at just the right time and said, hey, I've always wondered how a counselor would do as a financial planner. I think there's a lot of overlap. So I said, sure, okay, why not? I hate my life now. Let's try something else and see if that scratches the itch. And yeah, I mean, it did a lot of things on, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I think Trevor would say the same thing in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
We've got kind
Yep.
of that entrepreneur spirit, love building something and love creating new ideas and seeing them grow. And so we were able to do that with Financial MD 6.5, 7 years ago now. And really took off in the area. And what our goal was this year, and I think it was just in a lot of ways, this pandemic accelerated us. We wanted to do what had worked so well in Michigan. Because what I do is I speak to residency programs. That was kind of the way that we get our message out, we get our education out. And we found years ago when we started this residency workshop curriculum, financial literacy curriculum, is that residents were often jumping from $50,000 a year salary to $250,000 a year with no idea of what to do with it. They probably heard bits and pieces here and snippets from the other residents, or they're attending, or something they found online, or whatever, some good, some bad info. But what we
Hmm.
found is that there was no formal education. You go through 4 years of undergrad and 4 years of med school and however long a residency, all without anybody really taking out, enough time in a class type of setting to say, here's what you need to know, what you need to do. And so we started with one residency program in Lansing, Michigan, until last year we probably did 120 or so, um, all over the Midwest. We branched out into Chicago, Indiana,
Hmm.
Ohio, um, and Michigan. And so that just got me thinking of how much bigger impact could we have if we could take this thing virtual and we weren't limited
Hmm.
by location. Along comes the pandemic and says, sure. And a lot of people are going to be more open to that here this year. And it's really paved the way for where Financial MD is going. And I've been super honored to have Trevor along for the journey, because he's kind of my wise sage that is able to share some experiences, go through it, and I might come up with a dumb idea of, hey, I think physicians will like this, and he'll be like, dude, no, they won't. No, that's no, you're way off base there. Come back. So I think it works. So we're kind of the yin and the yang, and hopefully
Hmm.
we'll make this show entertaining. Um, the bigger vision of, and I think Trevor and I can both share into this, but my vision for Financial MD, why, I think people ask me the question, especially older advisors will ask me, why do you work with physicians? I hear they're a-holes, or I hear they're really difficult to work with, or God complex, or whatever, all these words. And that hasn't been my experience by and large. But I know that there's good people wanting to help people for sure. And do they make a high income? Sure, they make a high income, and that's great. But what I have seen over the years is way too many physicians that are just working, putting their head down, coming home from work, living their life, doing whatever. And the income at the end of a year, they may have made $250,000, $300,000, and they've got nothing to show for it.
Hmm.
Add to that, maybe they've married a physician, so now it's a double income. Add to that, maybe they've got a much higher, whatever the case might be. But over the lifetime of a physician, we ran these numbers one time, and if there's 1.5 million physicians, which is probably give or take a couple 100,000 in the United States, and average physician income, if you take them all, is probably between 2 and 250 over a 30-year career on average. Multiply that times a 30-year career, you're talking in the low trillions of dollars that are at stake here. In my mind, that can do a lot of good, not only for the physician themselves, not only for their families, but then once we hit those checkpoints, I have this kind of checkpoint roadmap process that I take everyone through. Even in residency, it's step one, complete this, then you can move on to step two. And it kind of builds up
Hmm.
like this. Remember the Maslow's hierarchy of needs? And kind of identifying this is the basic need. Then you move on to more kind of discretionary or optional things. In my mind, there's a lot of good that can be done. And I hate to see physicians that have such income potential over the years and such financial potential to look
Hmm.
back over their 30-year career. And if I tell them, hey, did you know you made $20 million over the last 30 years? And they just look back like, I have no idea where that went. And if we
Hmm.
can start as early as possible before that income starts, getting into good financial habits, so money is not necessarily uh, wasted or put into stupid things, or somebody talked them into this kind of policy or talked them into this or whatever. We try to prevent that. But also as they become an attending, to say, okay, do this to take care of yourself, do this to take care of your family and those that are close to you and that mean a lot to you. And then beyond that, if we work this right, and I think 99% of the time we can, you'll still have money left over to do great things with over the years. And our dream at Financial MD is that we'll be able to, maybe not literally, but be at the physician's deathbed when they're 90 years old and say, hey, because of what you did and the decisions that you made, you donated $1 million to ABC over the course of your career, $2 million, $5 million, which seems like crazy numbers when I tell this to residents or young attendings, but it's possible. And if we can do that for one, we can do it for 100, or we can do it for 1,000. And just, I believe that Financial MD is going to be a force for good in this culture. If we can stay the course and start to shift where some of the mentality and the behavior is going in the world of a physician's finances.
Hmm. Yeah, it's nice when if you make a lot of money, if you know where your money's going. I mean, I think, pick an investment. You can argue over different types of investments, and um, there's different opinions on automating things, or there's a ton of different investment opinions. But if you don't even know where your money's going, like it doesn't even matter what you think is a
Right.
good investment. It's like the
Right.
ninth conversation,
Any of
along.
those things is better than nothing,
Yeah.
right? Like there's not a right or
Yeah.
wrong there. It's like at least
You're
do
totally
that,
right.
and then we can talk about secondarily what to do within those things.
Yeah. That's really true. Yeah. Each thing. Yeah. They're certainly not. Um, Unlike a pyramid, if you're kind of doing one of those things, it's helpful. It's better than doing none. But certainly, like if you know where your money is going, which is not necessarily budgeting, I don't know if you're a big budget guy or not, but a lot of people start with budgeting as like the core thing. Whether
Mhm.
that's good or bad doesn't necessarily matter. But just if you generally know where your money goes, like I haven't been a strict budget guy, but I can always tell you like generally like how much I spend on this or that or where my money has
Yeah,
gone.
right.
Um, I spend it on purpose, even if I don't know where every single dollar is. And
Mhm.
then if it's not like making sense to me, I kind of do it just a little bit larger. And I think honestly, as a physician, uh, that was not as true as a resident. I had to keep a little closer track. But now that I'm an attending, you can kind of afford to do that.
Yeah,
If you're not blowing, if you're earning a decent paycheck, let's say you're at that 250 range starting out, if you just don't spend all your money that first month, you're going to have like a nice cushion in your checking account of between five and $10,000.
mhm.
And like you're not going to have overdraft fee problems, and you're going to be able to kind of keep track to a certain degree. And that's not necessarily true. I should say, I'm sure there are people that do have those issues, but um, we kind of we kind of have easy mode in terms of like doing some of the basic things right, as long as
Yeah,
we are playing by the correct rules, as long as we have good information.
yeah.
The correct premise goes a long way with somebody who makes a decent income. And you can even kind of make mistakes that other people don't make and bounce back from them. And
Yeah, that's a good point.
there's a lot of wiggle room. Like doctors are so set up to succeed, um, even with 10% of the effort of the average person, they're going to do better.
Yep.
It's having a big income is a big advantage. Dave Ramsey talks about like if you have a lot of debt, you got a big hole you're in. This is a weird analogy of actually, I'd love to get your take on this. I think
Yeah.
the analogy he gives is you're in a hole, but you have a big shovel. And I've always been like, don't
Doesn't that make you
you
deeper?
Yeah, yeah. So, but I'm pretty sure that's what he says every time. He's like,
Yeah.
"You got a big shovel, it'll get you out of it." And I'm always like, "But aren't you in a hole?" Like
Because of that
it's
shovel? What? Yeah. Didn't
yeah.
that shovel make
Anyways,
that hole? Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't quite. I mean, it's true though. I mean, it's a big shovel, but that's sort of like if you're trying to make a hole. I don't know. It doesn't work
Yeah.
well. Um,
Yeah, we get the
Anyways,
gist of
those
it.
are just my quick thoughts. Like now that I'm an attending, which I should say, yeah,
Mhm.
I'm a board certified ophthalmologist. Those boards were tough. I'm glad they're over. um, and I've been out from residency for a couple of years, and it is like I kind of wish I would have been a little less stressed in residency. I wish I would have just set up the things that you advised, and then not been like, oh, I need to make every little extra dollar because the dollars come after. They really do come after.
Yeah.
Um, and just to enjoy the limited time you have in residency,
Yep.
but I mean, in a matter of 10 hours, probably less, an hour a week
Mhm.
over 10 weeks, you would have every single thing in your financial life like set.
Oh, yeah,
And
for sure.
then you see it and you're like, I want to make money to like kind of get out of this. But you also have to live life outside the spreadsheet. And
Yeah.
there's different stages. So as a resident, I wish I could like I'm always like stressing about this or that, because I'm a driven person. But I wish I could go back and tell myself, just chill, man. Just
Mhm.
learn and just get your stuff in place. Just get your disability and maybe try to fill out that Roth IRA if you can. Refinance those loans to save tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
That's the easy one. The sooner you do it, the more you save. And
Yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like you can't do it all at one time, but you can like
Yeah.
get a plan early and then
Yeah.
you just got to execute that plan real slow.
That's totally true. And that's why that's why we created the roadmap for residents, so it would be kind of a one bite at a time type of thing. like ideally we meet with a resident in their first year and say, okay, PGY1, here's what you do. And then
Mhm.
the other stuff we can put off until PGY2 and, 3 and 4. And then, we take it in bites because it's hard enough to spend any time as a resident about your anything, let alone your personal
Yeah.
finances. And so what I wanted to do with Financial MD was figure out a way to first automate as much as we can, but B, have
Mhm.
somebody for, a reasonable price that even a resident could afford that, hey, I know they've got my stuff. I may have to sit down
Mhm.
for 3 to 4 hours a year. But I know that somebody's taking care of it, making sure I do what I got to do. And I don't have to be, we felt like what we'd seen before Financial MD was you could get that kind of service, but you had to be an attending because these advisors were only working with people that had 100,000 or 500,000 saved up, or they had these minimums because, it was just, I get it, they had to pay their bills and it takes some time. And,
Mhm.
or they were paying out of pocket, a couple $1,000s a year. But um, we just, by the time you're through residency, you've already built some financial habits.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's too late at that point a lot of times. So yeah, that's totally true. And going back to the budgeting thing, I agree with you on that, and we'll show in another show how we do this concept. It's not brilliant or proprietary, but it's worked for some I kind of came up with called reverse budgeting. Which if that's not out there, we'll trademark it. But it's basically the concept of like, okay, what do you think you need to do all these different categories of life, from housing to car to student loans to food to groceries to gas and all these different things. It's like, well, I think I probably need this and this and this. And I'll go through this conversation the first time I sit down with a resident. And usually we find okay, if we do that math, and it's this whole spreadsheet with formulas, and it says you should have $150 a month left over in surplus. And they're like, oh,
Mhm.
boy, that doesn't seem right. I usually have nothing left over. And it's like, okay, probably true. And that's usually what happens. But if these
Yeah.
numbers are right and we look over it, yeah, it looks right. You should have 150 surplus, right? Yeah, I guess that makes sense. We've thought of everything that I spend in a month. Okay, so let's take that money first and do something smart with it. And then we don't
Mhm.
have to worry about budgeting. You just do whatever you want with the rest because you're being smart with the extra. And if we can kind of slowly tweak that up every 6 months, then you'll be doing better and better and starting to knock out stuff on that roadmap. First step, get an emergency fund, knock out some credit card debt if you have to, get your disability insurance. Like those are some of the basic first steps that,
Mhm.
you know, with $150 a month, we can do that. And you'll know that you're doing better than 90% of the other residents out there just by doing that. So yeah, it's actual budgeting is hard to do. Sounds good
Mhm.
in theory. I've rarely seen
Yeah.
it work. So it's like, why don't we just take care of one budget, and that's, saving and just personal finance stuff, and then you do whatever you want with the rest.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice if there was like a product where like you this is basically like contributing a pre-tax from your employer's retirement
Mm-hmm.
plan, which is where they just take the money out, right?
Yeah.
It never ends up in your checking account. It's
Yep.
it's one of the reasons it's such a great way of investing is like you kind of never see it. It's sort of like, would you pay Social Security if they gave you the money and they're like, hey, we're going to put this in your bank account. Um, and then if you want to be a part of this, then give us whatever. It's like, what is it, 2%? It's more than that, right? I can't
Yeah.
remember how
Yeah.
much Social Security is. Medicare, I think, is 2%, right? Anyways,
Uh,
I should
yeah.
know this, but I don't remember.
Well, your
Um,
FICA, Social Security, all that stuff. I mean, you're
it all adds
7.65% is
up to,
just the
yeah,
employee share. Yeah,
that's
it's a
right.
lot. And that's why most people have most of their money at the end of their career in their 401k, because it's the easy button, because you don't see it.
Yes, right.
Um, and a lot of
It would
employers, even
be,
it's hard to believe you can do this, but it's a good thing. Employers
yeah,
can automatically enroll every new employee at
yeah.
1% or 2%.
Yeah, and if Social Security wasn't mandated, a lot of people wouldn't do it, even if
Right.
it was pre-tax.
Yep.
And there's a reason it's mandated. You can't say no, and so you're going to have a little bit of a safety net, not a lot. And if we could do that to ourselves, even beyond a 401k, that'd be sweet. Like in residency, I could have saved more. Like I said, it was tight. It's tight, but like it's also what a lot of people make, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah, right. That's
so
average
it's what
income.
it's
Sure.
for a lot of people. It's like what it's the most that they'll make, and it's not a terrible income. It just if you don't refinance your loans, yeah, you're super strapped because then you're
Yep.
paying minimums of like between $700 and $1,500 a month on a salary that's like a take home 3,000 a month. It's
Right.
pretty
Right.
it's pretty tough, but
Yeah.
doable if you have a cheap apartment or roommates. But if you could filter that like 3,000 a month in residency into a bank account where you're like, hey, I want 200 or 300 of this every month to go to X, and I like kind of can't access it. If there was some sort of artificial barrier you could sign up for, that'd be kind of sweet.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Just
Yeah,
like
that's a
stocks go
good
up,
idea.
right? But
Yeah.
we're young and we buy them and we trade them and we sell them and then we buy high and sell low, and like that's really common.
Yeah.
There's a way to like lock it up so I'm not allowed to do the stupid thing that I know that I'll do.
Yeah.
But it's your money, so they let you sell it. Like
Yeah.
it'd almost be nice to have some really purposeful things where it makes it really tough for you to get to your own money.
Well, and that's kind of what I feel like part of the purpose of a financial advisor is to be
Yeah,
kind of between
exactly.
people and their money. And someone's like, "Hey, I need you to sell all that stock," and the advisor's like, "Are you sure?" Because
Exactly. That's what that money's for. And it would have saved me personally a lot of money to have been doing that over the
hmm
past, even in residency.
yeah,
Uh, but anyways, yeah, I think that's exactly what a financial advisor is. It's just like, I have your funds under management. We can do that. And then, there's some extra fees involved, but that's
yeah.
not all bad. I mean, that is the barrier.
Well, and that's what you're paying
So
for, is
yeah, I
essentially.
think that's sort of like I listened to White Coat Investor and I've done his course and I have a
hmm
plan and all that stuff, but like it's doctors are their own worst enemy, and we're kind of worse at investing than a lot of the average individuals. And
Well, and even he would say maybe 15 to 20% of doctors are actually do-it-yourselfers.
totally, you're absolutely right. But
The rest
you
should
read the
get a good
blog,
fiduciary. Yeah,
yeah, you read the blog though, and you're just like, oh, here's the information. I understand the information. Let me execute based on this. It's
I
very
know. He makes it
simple,
sound like everybody should do this and no one should need an
and it's great.
advisor.
It does come across that way. I think sometimes he's such a he's such a good dude though. Like I've
Yeah.
emailed with him a couple times. He's so helpful. It's so responsive.
Hmm.
Um, and I think his goal is just to. I think his philosophy, even like his like tagline, is like helping doctors get a fair shake or something like that.
Yeah, right.
And I think he's just trying to like equip doctors to actually to know. And then from the Dave Ramsey kind of approach, it's like you can find out if you know a lot, then you can find out if the guy that you're paying knows more than you or knows how
Ah,
to like do the right stuff. So like
sure.
that's my approach at least.
Yep.
Um,
No, I
yeah.
totally. I think that makes sense, and that's where am. I'm a big proponent of the white coat investor, and because I
Yeah.
know he's not anti-financial advisor.
Hmm.
Um, yes, his course is called "Fire Your Financial Advisor," but
Yeah.
that's I get it. I mean, it's kind of a gimmick, but at the same time,
Uh-huh.
he's out there for the do-it-yourselfers, and I
Yep.
think there's a lot of people that will make more informed decisions on who their advisor is, which we're
Yeah.
totally in favor of.
Absolutely. Yeah, and
So I
having a
think that's good.
fiduciary is like, I mean, who doesn't want to have somebody who's like on their side? I think it's a totally reasonable thing.
Yeah, that's the whole
Um,
point. If we could give any investment or financial advice today, it's whomever it is you work with, whether it's yourself or whether it's
mhm.
an advisor, it's got to be someone you like and you trust. And number three, has your best interest at heart. And
Yep,
it helps if they're legally bound to have your best interest at heart, which is what a fiduciary is.
that's right. Yeah, if not, I mean, salesmen who are not fiduciaries, they have no responsibility to tell you. They're trying to make a sale, however, and if you're a fiduciary, then you're not just a salesman. I mean, you're trying to better the person that you're working with.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
the
it's a
downside of
big
that is
difference.
Yeah. And we'll go into another episode where we talk about the difference in how to pick a financial advisor. I mean, to get a fiduciary, you're going to have to pay for it. You're either going to pay for it
Hmm.
with some assets under management, or you're going to pay for it out of pocket. But that's the price you pay to have uh, good, suitable advice and somebody that you can trust. And again, a salesman, I've met some great salesmen, good people.
Hmm.
There
Right.
are some
Oh,
for
totally.
sure. But at the end of the day, can you truly say that the guy just can't be conflict free, you know?
That's right.
And nobody is, let's be honest. But if we
Hmm.
can try to minimize as much as possible, we're human and we're all driven by
Yeah.
money. I've met plenty of doctors that are driven by money. It's not
Yeah.
exclusive to just the financial field.
That's right. You're absolutely right.
So, well, I think we're coming up on the end of our time. Any final thoughts, Dr. Smith?
I think my last thought is like not so much from the financial perspective, but I'm curious. I think physicians take an oath, right? Just I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like thinking about what you were just saying. Like we take an oath to do no harm.
Yep.
Um, there's a lot that goes after that, but we usually just say the do no harm
Do
part.
no harm, right?
Um, yeah, but um, I don't know that there's a legally binding fiduciary equivalent in medicine,
Mm,
which is very interesting. Sort of like I must take the patient's best interest at heart. Um, I'm gonna have to chew on that because I don't think it exists, and that's kind of interesting that it doesn't.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that's a good one. And
I'm
it'll be
pretty sure it
interesting.
doesn't exist, so I'm gonna think about that. That'd be a cool thing, and it's something that should exist.
Yeah.
So um, it's yeah, interesting. We'll have to think about that. That's because there's plenty conflicts of interest in medicine.
Yeah, and for sure in the financial world as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I can tell you there are just offhand, I'll give you some, looks under the hood. There's a lot of push and incentives for an advisor, say, in we can't do this, but in say a commission-based advisor to sell a variable annuity to someone with $1 million versus put them in a mutual fund account or brokerage account and do it that way and just
Hmm.
make maybe 0.5% a year on an amount like that, because an annuity, a lot of these annuities probably come down a little bit over the years, but getting 6 or 7% upfront commission one time would not be
Hmm.
unheard of.
That's
So
outrageous.
on $1 million, that's what, $70,000,
That's
$60,000.
crazy. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've heard some good podcasts by the white coat investor that talk about that.
Yeah,
It's
it's nuts. And even me, as an advisor
mind
getting
blowing.
into that and seeing this going on, I'm like, how do you expect these guys to even if they're good guys, to make good decisions or feel like, I don't
That's what he
know.
says exactly. It's so much money that there's just no way. If you're selling a lot of that product,
Yeah.
it
So whose
has
fault
an
is it?
impact.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
The
It's
annuity company, is it? Yeah.
yeah, and all we can do is just be responsible for our own actions and um at the at the end of the day and then in decades down the road it's like what do you want to look back on.
Yeah. Don't you want to sleep at night? That kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally. You want to have mattered and feel good about it, and um that's worth leaving money on the sidelines. It's not like you're losing it, you're just not gaining it. That's okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, great, man.
Totally.
It was good to
All
catch
right.
up, and
Yeah.
let's do
Good to
this
see you.
again.
Enjoy your vacation. And looks like it's got to be Fiji,
Oahu,
Oahu.
Thailand.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just I just
Well,
woke up on the plane and I'm just here. So
oh, yeah. Get in your flip flops and get out there.